President Trump is backtracking on the potential release of footage showing controversial military strikes on a suspected drug boat off the coast of Venezuela. After initially saying he would support the release, now President Trump says he will defer to Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth. The Hill White House reporter Brett Samuels joins us to discuss. Hey, Brett, so this attack happened on September 2nd, and it sparked criticism after we learned that two survivors of the initial strike who were clinging to the remnants of their boat were then killed in a follow-up strike. Secretary Hegseth is headed to Capitol Hill today to speak with the gang of 8 lawmakers. They are top lawmakers, a bipartisan group from both parties on Capitol Hill. What do we expect from this meeting?
Yeah, Drew, I think we're going to see Secretary Hegseth really face some tough questions potentially about what exactly took place with this strike in early September, as well as what the Pentagon is willing to share as far as video footage or other data. We've seen the president and Secretary Hegseth express now some reservations about sharing video footage of that controversial second strike, which is really the one that has come under scrutiny here. The White House, the Department of Defense, the Pentagon, they've really kind of defended their actions here. They've shown no signs of kind of bending to lawmakers, but this is sort of a rare instance where we have seen lawmakers, particularly on the Republican side, actually express some concern and really kind of indicate that they're going to flex their oversight muscles to get more answers here.
When President Trump was initially asked about releasing that video, he said he would have no problem with it. But then over the weekend, Secretary Hegseth said that there was going to be a review process to see exactly what was on the video to determine if it could be released. Why would they not just release the video? What is the concern?
Yeah, what we've heard from the Pentagon, the argument coming from the Pentagon is essentially that this idea that releasing the video footage would somehow compromise, the tactics or the methods of this operation to target these alleged drug boats in the Caribbean. We should note that President Trump and Pete Hegseth have both kind of proudly shared footage of some of these strikes in the past. They've been pretty transparent about those, put those out on social media to kind of tout these efforts. It does make you wonder, I guess, what exactly is in that footage that the Pentagon thinks it would somehow compromise their mission in some way. But that argument seems to have swayed President Trump because, as you mentioned, Drew, last week he said certainly he would have no problem with releasing that second footage of that second strike. But then on Monday, he sort of bristled at the question, suggested he had never said anything like that, and that he would ultimately defer to what Pete Hegseth decides. So certainly hearing a different tune from the White House after Pete Hegseth said that this would be under review.
It seems like lawmakers are pretty adamant that this video be released. We're now learning that lawmakers are planning to withhold Pentagon travel budget to force the release of this video. Are they withholding the budget to force the release of this video, or are they just demanding the unedited versions for themselves?
Yeah, it seems lawmakers ultimately want this video for themselves. Obviously, I think there's always a chance that it then gets leaked out to the public. I think certainly Democrats would argue that this video should be made available to the public since they would make the case that this is not exactly helpful to the Trump administration, what they're seeing. But, I think withholding that travel budget is certainly one tactic we could see from lawmakers to kind of force the Pentagon's hand, play a little more hardball, and make really clear that they're very serious about getting their hands on this video and potentially withholding something if they don't.
After that initial meeting on Capitol Hill with the admiral that was involved in the attack, it seemed like Republicans were kind of saying nothing to see here. Do you think the fact that they've been willing now to insert that language inside the NDAA shows there is a bipartisan concern and that they really want to have this video eventually made public?
Yeah, I think it does reflect sort of the seriousness of this issue. You mentioned, obviously, Frank Bradley, the admiral, who Pete Hegseth and the White House have essentially kind of pushed this onto, have made the case, that it was Admiral Bradley who made the decision to fire that second strike. The White House has said, and Pete Hegseth has said, they were supportive of his decision to do so, but it is Admiral Bradley who really kind of came under the microscope there. He spoke to lawmakers. As you mentioned, Republicans in particular were pretty deferential to his decision-making there. But the fact that this does keep coming up, the fact that it is now part of the NDAA, this year-end defense spending bill, the fact that we keep hearing about it from lawmakers, not just in the Democratic Party, but on the Republican side as well, I think just kind of underscores the seriousness with which people are treating this and some of the real concerns people have about how exactly the Trump administration is carrying out these strikes on these alleged drug boats.
What can you tell us about the latest on the investigations in Congress? Senator Roger Wicker, the Republican chairman of the Senate Armed Services Committee, says he's planning to speak with Admiral Alvin Halsey. He unexpectedly announced he was stepping down as head of U.S. Southern Command. After less than a year on the job, there have been reports that he had expressed concerns about military operations in Latin America.
Yeah, I think, that's kind of reflective of what we may see from lawmakers moving forward. Obviously, you mentioned Admiral Halsey, sort of a key figure here, or somebody that lawmakers may try to get a hold of. The fact that he did step down right in the midst of all this controversy. I think that's somebody who obviously Republicans and Democrats would be interested in hearing from. There have certainly been a lot of reporting about, frustration with Pete Hegseth's leadership, a lot of reporting about questions about sort of the legality of this operation and these strikes on these alleged drug boats. Admiral Halsey, certainly somebody who may have some information about some of those things. So I think, if lawmakers do end up talking to him, that's kind of reflective again of the fact that they are serious about getting answers and serious about following through on this. And there's just kind of, turning the page to the next news cycle or the next headline isn't necessarily going to work this time for the Trump administration.
All right, will certainly be a story that we continue to follow. For now, we'll leave it at that. Brett Samuels, White House reporter here at The Hill. Thanks so much for your time.
Thanks, Drew.